Okay, I'd like to welcome everyone watching on ITV and via live stream and call the September 8th, 2020 regular meeting to order with all board members present via Zoom webinar. To begin, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. Get myself untangled here. Okay, first of all, to begin, I would like a motion to adopt today's agenda.
So moved.
Moved by Trustee Beiser.
Second.
And seconded by Trustee Whitehurst Payne. We will now vote on that motion. Barrera.
Aye.
Beiser.
Aye.
McQuarrie.
Aye.
And Whitehurst Payne.
Aye.
And before myself, Trustee Patterson.
Aye.
Okay, that's out of alphabetical order and everything else. And myself, aye. Okay, so that passes 5-0 along with the student board member. So today's meeting of the Board of Education is a public meeting of the Board of Education. It's a business meeting that is conducted in public in compliance with the directives by the state of California and the city of San Diego. We are limiting this session to online participation with 2 board members present at the Board of Education dais. Written public statements will be read into the record at the beginning of any agenda item and also at the end of the meeting for non-agenda public comment. You can refer to the website for the specifics on how to submit items for public comment, which are limited to 150 words, either on a particular agenda item, which you would indicate, or also on a non-agenda item. Those are submitted via email to the district prior to the meeting. Okay, we will now go to reports on closed session. And for this report on the closed session, we had a closed session for the board on July 28th, 2020, which was our last meeting, which was an update on the ongoing evaluation of the superintendent, and the evaluation of the superintendent is related to the evaluation of the district. This school year, this previous school year, we were in very special circumstances with the pandemic. So we decided to combine the 1920 and the 2021 into one 2-year evaluation. And we had a check-in at the end of July. And the reason for this is we had certain goals we established each summer for the following year. However, in March 13th, when we announced the closing of the schools, there were many items that were not anticipated, many things that the superintendent had to deal with during that particular time. And then after implementing those, to continue on with the goals that we had already established for the year. So we wanted, first of all, when we did the update on July 28th, acknowledge that there were several emergency achievements that were not contemplated in the original goals. And we want to commend the superintendent and staff for what they did during this time. And a mid-year progress check will be made in January 2021, and then the final evaluation in July 2021. But in terms of the rapid implementation of online learning and related services, there were several things that were accomplished that were not previously planned. First of all, the staff distributed student meals on the first day that school was closed at key sites, resulting in over 50,000 meals being distributed each day. Computers were distributed, as well as internet connections for over 50,000 students, which resulted in a 97% participation rate in the spring. The staff also collaborated closely with SDA, the San Diego Education Association, to be one of the first districts in the state to approve a distance learning plan, which included rapid training for teachers and paraeducators. The superintendent also developed partnerships with internet providers, food distribution agencies, and others to achieve these goals that I just mentioned. And in the meantime, we've developed a distance learning program for the opening of the 2020-2021 school year that's going to offer a more full curriculum until the classrooms are able to open. And this was developed with input from teachers, parents, and students, including a special week of intensive training during the first week of school, which was last week. Another major accomplishment was developing a mechanism for combing through all the scientific and public health data by empaneling a group of UCSD scientists and public health experts to establish criteria for a safe reopening of classrooms and to advise on safety measures that would facilitate the reopening. It remains our commitment to return to in-person learning as soon as possible in as safe of a manner as possible. The other thing that was accomplished by the superintendent and staff during this time was very effective advocacy at the state and federal level, which has made all the difference in terms of us being able to operate this year. First, she developed an advocacy plan with 6 key districts in the state that resulted in a major change in funding for the 2021 school year and allowed us to avoid a lot of major layoffs of staff. The difference between the budget that was proposed in May and the budget that was proposed in June by the state was dramatically different. However, it was not sufficient, and so we developed a national leadership role in collaboration with school districts across the country to gain the attention of Congress for the need for federal stimulus money to cover the expenses of the COVID crisis. And that is actually today, as we speak, being debated in Congress. Another major accomplishment of the superintendent and staff during this particularly difficult period was an effective response to the national and community conversation regarding Black Lives Matter. And this included developing and conducting a special board workshop, the Freedom 2020 Board Workshop, to build anti-racist and restorative school communities. It focused on staff diversity, ethnic studies, grading practices, and student discipline, and highlighted student voice in that presentation. So for the coming school year, in addition to all of the ongoing goals that we had previously set for the superintendent and staff, we've also added on an emphasis on particular goals, which are not new goals, but increased emphasis on these goals and a more urgent focus. First of all, to improve staff diversity at a more rapid pace, and this is going to be facilitated by a director of diversity and inclusion. To expand ethnic studies across the district to meet the new requirement of ethnic studies for the freshman class of 2020, as well as infusing ethnic studies into all areas of the curriculum, which will be facilitated by 3 ethnic studies resource teachers who will train all of our staff. We also asked the superintendent to present to the board a revised disciplinary policy, which we will be approving later this month after stakeholder engagement, including the work of the committee to reimagine the role of school police. And finally, to form an independent citizens oversight committee on this issue with participation of all stakeholder groups to review the district's actions related to the above topics on racial justice and equity within the district, and to report to the board on a quarterly basis to have community input. So in the 2019 plan, there were over 20 specific metrics related to student achievement and school climate that were indicated. And the superintendent has agreed to provide additional measures of student achievement that can be utilized to monitor student learning taking place in this unique distance learning environment. And the board has also asked the superintendent to compile the results on the academic achievements of the class of 2020 that just graduated. So overall, the superintendent and staff have risen to the occasion to meet the needs of our students in this new environment and in an exemplary fashion and in short order, but there is a lot more to be accomplished. Just as we continue to press for improved student achievement in years of financial cutbacks, we also want to see a continued increase in student achievement in spite of the challenges of the pandemic. Our teachers and staff, our students, and our parents together must meet this challenge. So that is our update on the evaluation of the superintendent, which will continue through the coming year. We'll now go to administrative assignments. Superintendent Martin will report on new administrative assignments.
Thank you, Dr. Evans. Welcome back to the new school year, and I will now announce the management appointments for this evening. Principal from Chesterton Elementary School, Michelle Guarino. Principal Fletcher Elementary School, Jeffrey Friedenberg. Principal Logan Memorial Educational Campus, Melanie Cray. Principal Sandberg Elementary School, Lindsay Birmingham. Vice Principal Correa Middle School, Kyle Cupper. Vice Principal for Elementary K-8, Tracy Peralt. Vice Principal Lincoln High School, Ricky Betancourt. Vice Principal Logan Memorial Educational Campus, Rocio Hodge. Vice Principal Logan Memorial Educational Campus, Robert Cole. Program Monitoring Program Manager, Mary Johnson. Program Manager, Program Monitoring, Anna Day. Program Manager, Teaching and Learning, Stacy Dent. And Director, Due Process, Mediations and Hearings, Jennifer Park-Sorosco.
Thank you, Superintendent Martin. We will now move to the Associated Student Body President's report. We have not had these over the summer, and this is the first meeting of the new school year. And I understand we have two ASB students present to introduce themselves and tell us about your school and what is going on in this special environment of this new school year. We have Austin Kingston, I believe, and Marshall McInerney from, one or both of them are from La Jolla High School. So I will just ask them to introduce themselves. I will start with Austin.
Hi there. My name is Austin Kingston. I'm a senior at La Jolla High School, and Marshall and I are acting presidents for now. So we have a report to give you. I think Marshall's go first for us.
Okay, Marshall, want to start off?
Hi, I'm Marshall McInerney, and I am here just to give a report about how distance learning has been for the students of La Jolla High School. Distance learning for me personally has been a good experience. There's been no hiccups. However, for some students, it seems there's been some problems, and that can largely be due to the fact that in the first week of school, there are kids that don't have classes they want, or there are kids that need to switch out their schedules. And normally you'd have just a giant rush of students to the counselor's office, but because of remote learning, that has not been as possible, and it's harder to get one's intentions out with an email rather than in person. Communication with teachers, however, is the opposite side of the coin. Teachers at La Jolla High have been extremely forthcoming with information and accessibility of how to reach them. And I've only heard good things about how much effort teachers are putting in to get in contact with students. Now, inter-student communication has been something that I've been interested in and want to address, because it's not the school district's responsibility to make sure that kids are being social and communicating, but a social person like myself is really only talking to the group that I am in, and it feels like that's a major cutback of having remote learning, is that you can't talk to your friend before, during, or after class. So there's definitely been a significant drop of student communication that's noticeable. And two major complaints that I've had, one of them is specific to La Jolla High School and the others across the district. One of them is about the portfolio that was assigned to all SD/USD students. I've heard complaints that it was just too much work, that it was confusing, and that it was not exactly the perfect opportunity. Although the intent was well, and it was easy to read that the intent was well, some students just thought it was too much work. In the quarter system that La Jolla High has been put under, it means so it's 3 classes a quarter instead of 6 classes a semester. And I've heard both sides of the coin of whether that's good or bad. Proponents of it are supporters of it, my bad, say that it's great because it eases the process of going into remote learning. So you don't have 6 classes thrown at you, you have 3 at a time. And then people on the other side of the coin say that the quarter system gives an unfair advantage to students that are studying it for AP tests or have any other schedule difficulties. And to go more into detail of what La Jolla High is doing during this pandemic, Austin's going to give us some more information.
Hi again. So I have some stuff from our ASB advisors that they wanted me to talk about, and also a little more to touch again on the quarter system. After we switched to distance learning last year in March, our school, we have a student store where we sell food and merchandise and all of that to students. So we donated all of that food, 732 pounds of it, to the San Diego Food Bank, which was really good. And then also for our student government, we have, in previous years, we've had 80 plus, 90, 100 clubs that are all student run and advised and such. And this year with distance learning, it's a little harder to figure out, obviously, because, in previous years, you would go to your club meeting in whatever teacher's room, and it would kind of be, just a normal high school club thing. But this year it's a little harder to figure out because you need your advisor to be present and start the Zoom and all that. And, we can't meet in person and such. So we're still figuring that out. We do have a link crew that normally we do every year to introduce freshmen to the school and to give them a tour, sort of reach out to freshmen. And again, it's a little harder because of distance learning, but we did have a meeting today with all of our link crew members who are there to help all the new freshmen, all the new students. And we are setting up a way to contact them either on the phone or through email or any sort of thing. And we're going to be checking in with them every week to make sure they know what's going on, make sure they're not stressing or anything like that. Because moving to high school is obviously a very stressful thing for us. And then, so we also we're working on, we have this thing called Student Senate in a normal year, where once a month, students from all the classes, one student from every class will come to our student government classroom, and student government will give them all the rundown of what's going on in the month, all sorts of activities, events, and information that needs to get out to the students. And the student who attended will be sent back to their classes and report. So we're working on a way to sort of do that in like a live stream, a sort of system where a student would log in and ask questions, and we would inform students that way. And then the last thing that I have written down is that, once again, the quarter system, it makes our student government sort of hard to do because we have one class period of student government and it's fourth period. So for the first quarter or so, we're having informal, not mandatory meetings for our ASB students where we're trying to, cover a week's worth of information in like an hour. It's kind of difficult. Our way through it, we're doing a good job so far. We've had a couple meetings, and everyone's really, really hyped up to do the best we can this year. And that's all I have for you.
Okay, well, thank you, Marshall and Austin. It was a very, very comprehensive report, and I appreciate the fact that you've pointed out what's going positively and also what's not going so well, and the fact that some things go smoothly for some students and not for others. The fact that you have an appreciation of the fact of what's going on with the freshmen. Others have already oriented to high school and been there a few years and can continue on under this unusual environment, but it's very, very strange, I'm sure, for the freshmen coming in to not have that type of orientation when they first get there, but that you're being very creative about how to do it, and at the same time pointing out some of the problems. And we're really going to rely on you and all of the other, particularly high school ASB presidents, to really keep us informed every step along the way in terms of what's going on. Last summer, we had participation from a lot of students, high school students, in our racial equity workshop, and that student voice is very important. So we want to continue doing that throughout the year, and just thank you very much for your participation. Again, under very challenging circumstances, but doing the best that we can. Thank you.
We have public comment.
Okay, we have public comment on the ASB student report. Okay.
Yes, we have one public comment on D3 from Citizen. An audit of the Patrick Henry Cheer Club ASB fund must be done, as the cheer advisor has been using students for fundraisers and depositing money incorrectly. A complaint about this issue to the ASB auditor was redirected to the Quality Assurance Office improperly. In a public email, the principal directs that all funds raised at the Patrick Henry Cheer Clinic must be deposited into the ASB fund because You made money off the work of students, and that's where it becomes an ASB event, school-sponsored, and why did you not pay rent for the school? And then responds by saying, I would say the money probably got deposited into the foundation account. If we need to move money into the ASB account, that is totally fine. Students are being exploited to pay the cheer coaches $15,000 above the walk-on coach stipend. An audit of the Patrick Henry Cheer ASB Club is needed.
Okay, so we have that public comment, and as I said at the beginning of the meeting, we do allow for public comment. We do not verify any of the information in it because it's our all of our citizens' right to speak up and give their point of view on all the issues that we're discussing. At this time, we're going to move to the superintendent's information report. Superintendent Martin.
Thank you, President Evans. As you know, we're still compiling our attendance results for the first week of school, and we look forward to sharing those with everyone very soon. But we do have the data from last spring, and I think it's important that we pay attention to that because we also have the data from other large districts as everybody is launching this school year. And I wanted to highlight tonight that we are particularly concerned about a group of students, and that would be our kindergartners. I think it's important that we get the message out and the word out to all of our kindergarten age students across the city from what we learned in the spring and what we learned from other large districts that the kindergarten attendance and participation rates have been dropping. Last spring, as you know, the nearly 98% of our students joined class and they joined online. But the largest group of students who failed to log in or participate in the online learning were our kindergartners. That was 51%. And already this fall, just very early on, we've seen media reports on declining kindergarten enrollment across the state and in other areas. So I just want to speak directly to our parents and to our community on this. Kindergarten is the wrong time for students to take a gap year. Kindergartners need to be in school. They need to be enrolled in our schools. Our kindergarten teachers are ready to teach them. We know it's not ideal being online, but this is where we're forming communities, meeting the families, meeting the other classmates and the teachers. And it's really important that all of our kindergartners are enrolled in school. So if you haven't done so yet, I want to put a message out. And if you know someone who hasn't, please help them. It's the importance of early childhood education can't be understated, and it's well documented. Harvard studied 12,000 children for 2 decades, and they found that those who attended kindergarten and did well were more likely to go to college than students with otherwise similar backgrounds. And as adults, they earned more money and saved more for retirement. The data on this is very clear and it's very important. Kindergarten is a critical time for students. It's a time when they make friends, they learn about school, they begin building their academic skills that we know they're going to need later in life. And our teachers are ready to make that happen for all of our kindergartners, which is why we just really need them to enroll today. And you all know I'm a former elementary school teacher. I taught kindergarten. It was one of my favorite grades to teach. I want parents to know that there's so much more than Zoom calls happening for our kindergartners right now. More than a laptop computer, it's every student who enrolls in kindergarten is going to have daily live instruction with his or her teacher. And some schools have scheduled virtual play dates. Every school is working to build this sense of community that we know our children so desperately need right now. So please, if your child's 5 years old as of a week ago on September 1st, please enroll them in kindergarten. Our teachers cannot wait to see you. That's all for my report tonight. Thank you, Dr. Evans.
Okay, thank you, Superintendent Martin. And we'll now go to a board information report. So let's start with student trustee Zachary Patterson.
Good evening, everyone. I want to start off by sharing what other students have to say. In speaking with Dr. McQuarrie a little while ago, he asked me, hey, I think you should have your student advisory board share some information about what students are feeling right now. And while my student advisory board is not yet completed for this year due to the fact that we're beginning recruitment at this moment, I did my best to consult some information from students I had around me, not just students from my own school. So I want to give my time to read the different comments that I got from students that I asked to submit. I am a student that attends James Madison High School. My first week of school went pretty well. I felt that all of my teachers were trying their hardest to adjust to this new way of teaching, and I really appreciated that. My teachers didn't really give thoughts on the portfolios, just that it was something necessary to be completed. Personally, I felt the portfolios were a waste of instructional time that we could have had for AP courses. With this new schedule, we only have 18 weeks of instruction with 8 weeks in between the instruction, which makes it very difficult to cram the necessary information. And it would have been nice to have that extra week rather than going to the portfolio. But overall, I thought the information in the portfolio was very nice, talking about mindfulness, growing yourself, and the importance of boundaries. I think my teachers are really trying their hardest to make this a great year, and I think that will translate into my learning experience this year. Another one, I'm a student at Roosevelt Middle School. My first week of school went half bad, half good. I felt that my teachers were great. They all seemed super prepared and responded really fast to questions. I felt that the portfolios were honestly a waste of time. The work wasn't too hard, but it was not helpful at all. Seriously, it asked us to meditate. Everyone I've talked to at my school and other schools agreed that it was a huge waste of time. The assignments for individual classes we had to do each day were fine, but the questions on the actual slides were a little bit tedious. I am pretty sure that I will have a very good year. And P.S., I think that having each class for a quarter of the year was a bad idea. We're all going to forget everything by the next quarter, and by the next quarter that comes around. I am a student at University City High School. This is not me, by the way. My first week of school went pretty well. I felt like my teachers were well prepared and very helpful. They seemed very comfortable with the technology and the websites that were used. I felt the portfolios were somewhat helpful, but at times seemingly pointless. Many of the activities felt like they were only there to fill time and space without any real learning purpose. The teachers seemed to agree that this was a waste of the very limited teaching time we have this quarter. However, I did think that the meditation and note-taking was helpful in preparing me for the school year to start. Overall, I am confident that I am ready for success in my online classes. Another one, I am a student at Sarah High School. My first week of school went fairly well, but the vast majority of my friends were very confused about the first day of school, so I was very busy leading up to the start of that day, helping my friends figure out their classes. I felt that all the teachers I met were prepared for online classes. Some read books over the summer, some consulted other teachers, and some did test runs of Zoom to make sure all the functions they wanted to use were prepared. My teachers had inconsistent views of the portfolio. One thought it was unnecessary, one assigned it for extra credit, and one didn't mention it at all. I, as well as many of my classmates, thought the portfolios were mostly busy work. For example, one of my friends compared their portfolio work with their younger sibling in middle school, and they were almost identical. Overall, I'm confident that I can learn successfully online, and I'm excited for the inherent benefits that it offers, but the sentiment isn't necessarily representative of the general student population. These are personally my ideas. And my last one, my name is Jonah, or not supposed to say the name, sorry. I am a student at San Diego High School, and my first week of school went pretty well. My teachers and I were mostly on time for Zoom calls, and people were mostly prepared. The student portfolio wasn't that labor intensive, but was still a good tool to get back into doing schoolwork and also getting prepared for the school year. As I know other people do, I don't think having only 4 classes per semester is a good idea, because by the time school starts next year, we will have forgotten everything we learned in the first semesters of this year, or in the first quarters, to correct him. Overall, my first week of school went well, and I feel good going into the rest of the school year. Okay, that's what I have for students specifically, and to add on to my own experience, since I'm obviously a student as well, I would agree with the comments about the quarter system as well as the portfolio. I will say, however, that in consulting with the principal of San Diego High, she said that she appreciated how students were emailing her portfolio instructions, were introducing themselves, as that was some of the activities that were in that portfolio. And she also said it allowed time to orient students and reach out to students and parents that were confused or disconnected. Again, though, this was not the sentiment of the group of students that I surveyed and the students at La Jolla High School that just shared. And my last thing, irrelevant to the first week of school, I want to congratulate the state legislature on passing AB 331, ensuring that students across the state of California will be taking ethnic studies in the future. San Diego Unified is ahead of the curve, but I'm glad the rest of the state's moving forward. It is my strong hope that the Instructional Quality Commission continues to redraft the curriculum to focus on minorities of the Middle East, as well as Arab American studies, as well as properly identify anti-Semitism as a 21st century issue that continues to be perpetuated. That's my board report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Trustee Patterson. Okay, let's go to Trustee Beiser.
I'll defer so we can have more time to listen to the public today.
Okay, Trustee McQuarrie.
Yeah, I want to thank our La Jolla High School students, Austin and Marshall, and Trustee Patterson for their excellent reports and their updates on the school opening. We are better informed and make better decisions when we have this opportunity to hear student voices. So thank you. I also want to encourage all of our parents and community members to participate in the 2020 census count. We are in the last phases of this important census account that started in the spring, and this will be our final opportunity to have a complete count. The count is so important in determining funding that comes to a lot of our public agencies, including services that are public schools. So I want you to take action, get out there, make sure that you are counted as well as registered, and vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee McQuarrie. Trustee Whitehurst Payne.
I'd like to welcome all of our students, staff, and even families back to the 2021 school year. I am really excited and optimistic about this year. When I look back at how we started off in education initially, we had pencils and papers and all of that. Then we eventually moved to typewriters, and then we began to move to computers. Now we're moving into Zooming and online activities. And I think we just have to update our thinking that we're not going to go back to the agrarian society where you had to farm and all of that. So if we look at this pandemic as an opportunity, not as something negative, but as an opportunity for us to move into this century, then I think it'll turn our thoughts around and we can move forward with a positive attitude. I really am excited, and the superintendent spoke on what I wanted to talk about concerning kindergartners, because we absolutely must not leave them out. And I know Mr. Barrera and I plan to do some things to encourage students in our communities to come to school. It's time for Ks to come to school. And I want to say to students who may be listening, teachers, parents, community folks, if you know of a 5-year-old who's just sitting at home or who may be sliding and you don't know whether or not he or she will say something to them, because we absolutely do not want this group to be called the pandemic babies. We want them enrolled in school. We have something for them, and I know that we can make a difference with the children. I did a lot this summer visiting all of the food pantries that I could get to the our distribution food sites in my community and in Mr. Ferreira's community, visiting the distribution of devices and so forth. So we've gone out there, we've been involved in things, but I want you to know that I'm not looking at this year as a loss. This is a gain. Everyone now should have a device, and we all are on the same page with that. And it's an opportunity for our students, our staff, our parents, the community to get on board and help our children to rise to the occasion. We can do it, and that's my expectation for this year. If you have any questions or concerns, give us a call, give the district a call my office directly, call the board office, and we will get back to you. I thank you for this time, Dr. Evans.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Whitehurst Payne. We will now go to Vice President Barrera.
Thank you, President Evans. I just want to build on what Dr. Whitehurst Payne just said. I just want to say a tremendous thank you to Superintendent Martin, Greg Ottinger, Drew Rollins, and our food services team and our information technology team. What they've done since the beginning of this pandemic is extraordinary. We now have served over 4 million meals to our students who otherwise are challenged, in many cases
for stable, nutritious meals. And now we've expanded from first 9 sites to then 26 sites to now 82 sites where we're distributing our meals in our grab and go process. And our partners from the San Diego Food Bank and Feeding San Diego and Fern Street Circus have been tremendous in allowing us to continue to feed our students, and as well as the day-to-day work that our food services department is carrying out. Our food services department was crystal clear on the need for the federal government, the United States Department of Agriculture, to extend our ability to continue feeding our students, even as we continue to be in a crisis. It's not enough what the Secretary of Agriculture has done. He's extended through the end of December our ability to continue to feed students, but it's certainly better than what initially we had feared, which was they were going to shut us off right as the school year would have begun. And so the advocacy that came from our food services department, the clarity, I know has influenced decision makers in Washington, D.C. We've got tremendous champions in our local congressional delegation led by Representative Susan Davis, along with Representatives Juan Vargas, Scott Peters, Mike Levin, who have advocated strongly to the U.S. Department of Agriculture to reverse their decision that would have cut off our ability to supply meals. But that all came from our food services department. And likewise, our IT department has now distributed 75,000 personal devices to our students and has arranged for internet access for thousands and thousands of our students. So, you know, the work that our entire district, led by Superintendent Martin, but in particular these two departments, food services and IT, has made it possible for our students to be in position to learn as we begin the school year. And I just am very, very grateful for that work. Thank you.
Thank you to all of you for those reports. I just want to acknowledge that I know that the question on many people in the community, especially many parents' mind, is when are we going to reopen and when are we going to have in-person learning? And anxiety is very high in the community across the nation. There was a report on Google of a sharp increase in the number of searches for anxiety and panic attacks, as well as depression during this time. And I just want everyone to know that it is the desire and commitment of this board to get students back for in-person learning as soon as safely possible. And everything we're doing is always a balancing of risks. There are risks of being in school in terms of promoting the contagion of the virus. There are many risks that have been pointed out in terms of not being in school, in terms of social emotional development, in terms of academic learning, and so forth. So we know that both of those are the case, which is why we did impanel the group of UCSD scientists to help us figure out how and when to most safely open. We didn't ask them if we should open, we asked them how we could do it. And that's what we have been and will continue working on them. Back in June, we did make an effort to say, okay, we want to really reopen our schools to in-person learning for all of our students in the fall. And we had about 2/3 of our parents who said they wanted to, bring back their students to school full time. The virus began to increase over the following month and across the nation too, to the point where the public opinion polls at that point were about 2/3 of the parents felt it was unsafe to be in school. We're fortunate in San Diego that we have gotten off the watch list, but this is a very perilous situation because it's, in my opinion, very unwise. The fact that we have reopened bars and other facilities like that before we're reopening the schools. But everybody in San Diego can do their part towards getting our students back in school sooner by not gathering in large groups, by wearing masks, and by maintaining social distancing. We are going to take a phased approach, and we've already announced that during this month of September, we're going to look at about 10 or 12% of the students, those who are homeless, some special education students, and some other students who are having greater difficulty, in terms of very low achievement level, in terms of having some in-person contact. We already have some teachers who are teaching their online classes from the school themselves, from their own classrooms. So there's a little bit of activity at the school that way too. And we will progress with each phase very carefully, and we'll keep you posted as soon as we know when and how we can do that. So at this point, we will continue on with the business of the meeting. First, I'd like a motion to adopt the board consent agenda items F1 through F4.
So moved.
Okay, moved by Trustee
Patterson.
Barrera and seconded by
Trustee Patterson.
Trustee Patterson. Okay, let's, if there's no discussion, let's vote on this item. Trustee Patterson,
Aye.
Barrera,
Aye.
Visor,
Aye.
McQuarrie,
Aye.
and I think a dog also voted
Yeah.
yes. Whitehurst Payne.
Aye.
Okay.
Voted twice.
Okay, and yes, and Evans, aye. Okay, so that passes our board consent agenda. We're now moving to operational matters for the board, and here I would like a motion on items G1 through G4, including G5 without a number, all the memoranda that we have before us. Is there a motion on this
So
item?
moved.
Okay,
So
moved by Trustee Whitehurst Payne and seconded by Trustee Barrera. Okay, and we have one public comment before we vote. And I also usually leave out Trustee Patterson, and now I see on my notes this time I'm supposed to leave him out of this vote. So this will be intentional this time. Okay, the public comments.
Yes, we have one public comment on G4 from a person who wishes to remain anonymous. My husband and I are both essential workers, and we have 2 elementary age children who attend an amazing San Diego Unified School. We appreciate all the hard work that their teachers and principal have put into the distance learning program so far, but this form of education is unacceptable for children, especially of elementary age. The claim that San Diego Unified is trying to be the strictest district when it comes to health standards is overly stringent. I have the utmost respect for Dr. Terrace and the UCSD experts, but believe you should also look at the opinion of the American Academy of Pediatrics, as well as the physicians of Rady's Children's Hospital. Other districts around the county are figuring out a way to return to school safely, and so should San Diego Unified. Why should essential workers have to pay for childcare when we ought to be able to send our children to public school?
Okay, I think that was probably for non-agenda. This is resolutions regarding National Hispanic Heritage Month, Patriot Day, and National Suicide Prevention and Awareness Month. I'm sorry, I'm on the wrong item. Okay, this is about the contracts with the various employee groups. I'm sorry, that was my mistake. I'm in the wrong place on the agenda, and that was appropriate for that item. Okay, if there are no comments on these items in total, I will now take the vote. Trustee Barrera,
Aye.
Visor,
Aye.
McQuarrie,
Aye.
Whitehurst Payne,
Aye.
and Evans, aye. Okay, that passes 5-0. Okay, we will now move on to district operations, item H1. This is the fiscal year 2019-20 unaudited actuals financial reports according to the standardized account code structure, which we use to report these items. So we have Superintendent Martin. Do you have somebody to present this item?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Evans. These unaudited actuals are the annual financial report that shows the complete fiscal picture of the district for the year. It's a report that we submit to the Board of Education. It's required by the state of California as an annual exercise, and it's also to our auditors annually, and it shows all revenues, expenditures, and other financing uses and ending fund balances of all the funds of the district for the fiscal year that was ending June 30th. And I have Dr. Ottinger to do this presentation.
Thank you, Superintendent Martin. I will pause a moment while we pull up the presentation, and I will gladly walk the board through. Thank you so much. If we could go back, perfect. And you can advance to the next slide, please. So as I said, thank you, Superintendent Martin and members of the board. As part of our regular fiscal planning process, this evening, we're going to brief the board on the unaudited actuals for the 1920 year, as with a staff recommendation to approve and submit to the San Diego County Office of Education. So let's begin by grounding ourselves in the budget process again. Next slide, please. This should be looking familiar. Here we are on the left side, preparing the actuals prior to September 15th. Next slide, please. As the board is well aware, as commentary this evening, the spring budget season included some unprecedented shifts related to the national, state, and certainly the local response to COVID-19. Therefore, we saw an ending balance close out higher, primarily due to shifts related to the final state budget and related impacts. The major reasons are highlighted here, and I'm actually going to outline them on the next slide, please. This slide lifts up the major deltas between estimated and unaudited actuals. In these categories, for example, in response to COVID-19, the state allowed school districts to make expenditures in the spring as a response to COVID-19 so that we could transition and support our distance learning and our nutrition and the technology and all of the related elements that some of the board members mentioned this evening. So while we knew that the funds would not actualize into the budget until later in the fiscal year, we were authorized by the state to make those expenditures so we did not have to tell the community and the students, I'm sorry, hold on, wait, you need to wait to get your food until those funds are actually verified. We were allowed to move ahead because the state would make it good. State made it good, so we see this $7.4 million as an accounting that came in after the expenditures across the fiscal year. So wanted to lift that up. Next, we had a series of expenses that a lot of things were planned for the spring, but as many of our lives and many of us experienced, or all of us experienced, there were things in the spring that we expected to do that we were not able to do, and we will be completing them here in the fall, such as graduation exercises, but really school site budget carryovers that we know will be happening this year. So we carry those over, which is an increase of roughly $10 million between estimated and unactuals. And finally, as has earlier been mentioned, the board is well aware we experienced an increase in the needs and the related expenses for food throughout this pandemic, coupled with an overall decrease of our overall apportionment from that once the trailer bill language for the state budget was finalized. So again, we'd had some increased expenses because we know we're not backing away from feeding our students. Yet, once the trailer bill settled all through the summer and we knew the actuals on the final budget, those decreased. So those two together accounted for the $17 million delta on that line. So therefore, the sum of a innumerable number of puts and takes puts us in a position where our ending balance is truly allocated. However, we were on the right side of a balance, which is on the positive side. So the board, the district, we balanced our budget, and we were able to confirm that as we move through these unaudited actuals. Next slide, please. Next, our external auditors will review our budget, all of the factors, everything that we're submitting this evening, to be an additional set of eyes. These results will be brought back to the board by the auditors in December. Therefore, this evening, the internal staff we want to bring our recommendation based on our review, our analysis, that the board should approve these unaudited actuals. And next slide, please. So with that, we also want to thank the entire finance team. Similar to the accolades that are much deserved earlier, we also want to just thank the finance team who have really continued throughout this budget. Budgeting is complicated to begin, add the pandemic, add a bunch of other moving factors. And so thank you to this team for this huge effort. And with that, I will pause for board questions.
Okay, we have no public comment on this item, correct? Okay. Any questions or comments from board members? Seems pretty straightforward that there was some increased funding and there was some increased costs. So we were able to sort of balance those out for a balanced budget, I think is the simplest way of putting it.
Yes, sir.
If there are no comments,
Wait, yeah, Dr.
there's a
Evans.
motion. Yes.
Sorry, just so I understand. So a little bit confusing to me. So the extra funding that that funding that we needed that the state allowed us to authorize, was it going to specifically food services, you said? And that was the primary cost. That was the primary additional cost that we didn't expect.
Thank you, Board Member Patterson. There was a variety of additional costs. There were additional needs by families. I think you, in fact, earlier mentioned in terms of students, hotspots, devices. That was certainly an area of need. Also nutrition, also preparing for professional development, the staff readiness. And so, and I think that we've been able to discuss here in a public forum, one of the interesting differences for your perspective is, as opposed to when you hear about the Great Recession or 08, 09, where that was truly just a decline in the state funding for a variety of reasons. This pandemic, as we've experienced it, didn't just allow for a clamp down and a hunker down approach to budgeting because there were additional needs. And suddenly the district needed to make sure that we got it right by getting 50,000+ devices out in the spring, also making sure that families are fed. And then also as we prepare to have all those other associated costs with the spring. So that's where I think I understand your question. So we're able to put those costs to, for example, what are called the learning loss funds to ensure that we didn't wait. You as a board member did not have to hear from students that they were struggling in the spring and we were unable to provide these services because we had to wait until final budget was enacted from the state or things like that. We were able to move in the spring knowing that the payment would be coming through. Now we're past that and we are seeing the payment come through. And so just to be really clear that it's not necessarily additional funds on top of the additional funds, it's just on the ledger, it's just accounting for it now in this new fiscal year. And that's why we lifted that up. Does that help you, Board Member Patterson?
Yeah, so just so for my understanding, so the funds that we spent on these additional costs, a lot of the advocacy that all of us on the board did in order to ensure that those funding gaps would be closed, the state changed their policy to allow us to, do we move those expenditures over to this year's budget, or because you said we didn't receive additional funding? I apologize, sorry, it's a little bit.
No, it's a great question. So I would say first and foremost, the advocacy was and is absolutely critical because we have simply moved from one aspect of the pandemic. We've crossed a fiscal barrier and now we are into the new year where our needs in DC are absolutely critical. With the learning loss funds and with the funds that you're mentioning specifically, yes, the unprecedented aspect was due to the pandemic, we were allowed to, where appropriate, carry spend in the fiscal year we were in. Okay, so in the 1920, which closed at the end of June, we were able to spend in that year, but the state allowed us to do that even though they weren't going to necessarily get the funding to us until we crossed into the new year. And so that's a non-typical approach that absolutely, when we talk about that sort of flexibility, that's everybody coming together to make sure that the schools could take action. And then when it was time to continue to settle up, that we could do that in an open and transparent way. So that's what we're getting at here as well.
Yeah, perfect. That makes sense. Thank you.
Okay, this is,
President Evans.
yes, Dr. McQuarrie.
The question that Trustee Patterson asked kind of raised another question in my mind. What do we know about the source of the additional funding? What percent or how much was federal? How much was state? How much was due to the CARES Act that was passed last year?
So we are happy to get those specifics. It was a mix. It was a mix of both federal and state funding sources with the CARES Act, the different implications of the CARES Act. Also, keep in mind the state and the federal. There's another crossover there because I do believe, thanks to advocacy, the governor of California was able to use some of the CARES dollars and actually continue to apportion those for schools alongside the element that was directed purely for schools. And I do know that that was strong advocacy and conversations when it was time for the legislature and the governor's office to decide on what the final state budget was going to look like between May revise and June. So the short answer, Dr. Mike, is it's a mixture of both the federal and the state.
Thank you.
Okay, is there a motion on this item? Moved by Trustee Barrera and seconded by Trustee Whitehurst Payne. Again, the action is to submit this report to the County Office of Education. So we will now vote on this item by all board members. First of all, Trustee Patterson.
Aye.
Trustee Barrera.
Aye.
Beiser.
Aye.
McQuarrie.
Aye.
Whitehurst Payne.
Aye.
And Evans. Aye. Okay, that passes 5-0 along with our student board member. Item H2 is a public hearing to grant a permanent easement at the Logan Memorial Educational Campus for parking. It's just a basic easement that we do. It does require 4 votes to be approved. And first of all, Ms. Stoltz, are there any public speakers on this item? I don't believe so. Okay. Is there a motion on this item?
Move approval.
Okay, move Trustee Whitehurst Payne, seconded by Trustee McQuarrie. Okay, let's go in reverse. Trustee Patterson.
Aye.
Trustee Whitehurst Payne.
Aye.
Trustee McQuarrie.
Aye.
Trustee Beiser.
Aye.
Trustee Barrera.
Aye.
And Trustee Evans. Aye. Okay, that passes 5-0. Now we go to item H3, which is a public hearing and first reading the proposed 2020-21 learning continuity and attendance plan. This is a special report in place of what we're normally doing, I believe, with the LCAP, and I will turn this item over to Superintendent Martin. Again, this is just a public hearing, which we'll open at this point and just have some basic information presented to us.
Thank you very much, President Evans. So as we present this document tonight, I have Dr. Freire that will present, and it's related to Senate Bill 98 that was established as the Local Control Accountability Plan, the LCAP that you're most familiar with. And there's usually an annual update of the LCAP, but that is not required for the 2020-21 school year. So in lieu of the LCAP, what this bill does is it established the requirement to complete a learning continuity and attendance plan, learning continuity plan, or LCP, as we've been calling it, for the 2021 school year. And tonight what you'll see is our first read of this. The template for this plan was made available to districts across California on August 1st, and the final date to submit it is September 30th. So it's a very fast turnaround as they suspend the LCAP and move into this learning continuity plan. In this plan, you're going to see we will go over our stakeholder engagement efforts, our plans for returning to in-person instruction when it's deemed safe to do so, how we're maintaining our continuity of learning during the distance learning format, our plans for school nutrition in both an in-person and distance learning format. And then finally, you'll also see us talk about monitoring and supporting mental health and social emotional well-being of students and staff during the school year. So given that there's a very short timeline that we were allotted in the district, we're going to continue to conduct stakeholder engagement on this plan. There'll be sessions between the first reading, which you have tonight, and then before the scheduled final adoption, which will be on September 22nd. That's when we'll be reading it the second time. But we'll have continuous stakeholder engagement meetings throughout that time. And I'd like to say, if there's anyone who wants to submit additional comments for this LCP, you can do that by emailing LCAP, it's LCAP @sandy.net, because we are in this period where we're continuing with stakeholder engagement. And tonight we're going to outline for you the engagement process. We're going to summarize the essential elements of the plan. We're going to inform you on what the professional development is that our district's been providing all of our educators and our school leaders that they've been receiving during the pandemic. We're going to talk about how to ensure the continuity of learning for both online and on-site. We'll go over school nutrition and social emotional, and then any other additional supports that we're putting in place for our most needy students. And with that, Dr. Frere, I keep saying Dr. Frere, but I think it's Dr. Roditi, isn't it?
Yeah, it's Dr. Roditi now. We all have to practice it.
I know your name still says Frere, so I'm just telling the board, sometimes what you will hear Ms. Bustani refer to her and you're like, wait, who is that? So let's just make it clear. It's Dr. Roditi. Thank you. And Ms. Bustani, thank you for joining us tonight to present the district's learning continuity plan.
Thank you, Superintendent Martin. Good evening, President Evans, Vice President Ferreira, trustees, and student representatives. My name is Tabla Basani, Executive Director, School Innovation. It's an honor to be here with you this evening to present our 2020-2021 Learning Continuity Plan. Joining me in our presentation this evening is Dr. Sophia Roditi, Chief of Leadership and Learning. We'd like to begin with this visual, which illustrates our collective effort to thoroughly engage our stakeholders in the development of our Learning Continuity Plan. Examples of our extensive engagement process included feedback and input from think tanks, focus groups, labor groups, clusters, San Diego Unified School District families, and medical experts. In particular, our district team and representatives from SDEA met with a panel of healthcare experts from UCSD on July 29th. We knew that critical decisions regarding the reopening of our schools should be grounded in science and research. UCSD panel of doctors and epidemiologists consulted our team around health and safety guidelines necessary to ensure a safe reopening of our schools for students and staff. Additional stakeholder engagement with our advisory committees is currently in progress and will be added to this plan upon completion. As part of stakeholder engagement, the early draft of the Learning Continuity and Attendance Plan was made available for public review on August 27th via the district website. All stakeholders are invited to submit feedback and comments via survey or email lcap@sandy.net. A dedicated phone line has also been established for those without internet access to provide feedback as well, and that number is 619-260-5430. Our team has worked diligently to ensure that we are crystal clear about the essential elements of our learning options as we maintain continuity of learning. Our 2020-2021 learning options include the following essential elements for all San Diego Unified School District learners. Connection and belonging, which includes keeping students enrolled in their school of attendance. Social emotional learning, which includes avoiding shifts in class assignments by ensuring that all students are members of a stable classroom learning community. Culturally responsive curriculum and instruction, which includes equitable access to a guaranteed and viable curriculum and culturally sustaining and responsive instructional strategies. In addition, we've included engagement and collaboration, meaningful assessment and feedback, standards-based grading, supports for students with disabilities, designated and integrated ELD, restorative communities, and of course, parents as partners. Professional development for educators is key to successful learning continuity for our San Diego Unified School District students. We are proud to share that our district team partnered with our bargaining units to develop a plan for every educator in our system to take advantage of a week-long series of professional learning. This professional development series, which took place last week, equipped thousands of our educators and leaders with the knowledge, skills, tools, and strategies necessary to successfully launch the new school year in online learning. Attendees included teachers, pre-K-12, school counselors, school nurses, school psychologists, and speech and language pathologists. We are proud to announce that an unprecedented 6,000 sessions were attended by our educators this past week as part of our system-wide professional learning. Leadership professional learning will be grounded in ensuring that all students are moving into the sphere of success and all educators are equipped to design equitable classroom conditions for every student during online or on-site learning. With this vision in mind, our leaders will engage in collective learning focused on building anti-racist and restorative school communities where we collectively eliminate inequities, eliminate barriers, and eliminate disproportionalities that prevent students from receiving equitable access and experiences and outcomes. As part of our Leadership Professional Development series focused on culturally sustaining and relevant teaching, San Diego Unified has invited renowned keynote speakers. Dr. Bettina Love, author of We Want to Do More Than Survive, Dr. Doug Fisher, author of Distance Learning Playbook, Hamish Brewer, author of Relentless, and Zaretta Hammond, author of Culturally Responsive Teaching in the Brain. San Diego Unified School District leaders will also have ongoing opportunities to refine their instructional expertise as they support both online and on-site teaching and learning through the following professional learning structures: principal institutes, leadership labs, triads, and area superintendent walkthroughs and office hours. Our continuity of learning plan will ensure quality online and on-site learning instruction. Online learning will provide daily interaction for the purposes of instruction, progress monitoring, and maintaining school connectedness. Our students will benefit from 5 days of daily live instruction, 360 minutes of synchronous and asynchronous instruction, and opportunities for small group instruction and office hours. Our added component to online learning is an opportunity for students to take advantage of appointment-based learning experiences. Our tiered approach to resuming to on-site learning, which will begin with elementary students who are not making progress towards standards, will offer opportunities for support and intervention, time to connect with teachers through office hours, and appointment-based IEP services. Secondary on-site learning phases will be added based on the success of our elementary schools and our effort to seamlessly maintain continuity of student learning. Keeping our students nourished is of the utmost priority. San Diego Unified School District Food and Nutrition Services is committed to providing healthy school meals in order to support student academic success and also promote healthful eating habits that lead to lifelong positive nutrition practices. Since the closure of schools in March, the district has served more than 4 million meals to students via the 26 curbside grab-and-go meal pickup locations. Beginning August 31st for the start of school, the district has expanded the 26 drive-through walk-up style meal distribution to 82 sites. All 82 serving sites are community eligibility provision schools, providing convenient access to school meals for our neediest learners. All students, regardless of their meal eligibility, can go to their pre-designated serving location to pick up nutritious breakfast and lunch Monday through Friday. Health and safety protocols, including hand hygiene, physical distancing, wearing face coverings and gloves, will be adhered to. In addition to the expansion of grab-and-go meal distribution locations, the district has also been able to expand the availability of no-cost meals to students in need by including an additional 36 schools in the community eligibility provision for the 2020-2021 school year. This allows all students at these schools to pick up meals at no cost without having to complete any free or reduced price application. As students return to campus for on-site learning, meal services will expand to serve on-site students, while the grab-and-go process will continue for the students that remain in online learning. As the district resumes to on-site instruction, food and nutrition staff will follow safety guidelines set forth by the California Department of Public Health for hand washing, proper sanitation of workstations, physical distancing, and face coverings. We will continue to provide supports that enhance the social, emotional, and well-being of our students, families, and staff in the following 3 areas: in the classroom, within our school community, and in connection with our community partners. In the classroom, for example, our teachers will have an opportunity to assess students' social emotional learning by the implementation of an SEL universal screener. Our teachers will also engage in explicit SEL instruction and ongoing professional development. In school communities, we will continue to integrate systems of supports where school counselors and other mental health professionals will provide counseling, classroom lessons, individual and/or student group support as needed. Within our community and our partners, we will continue to increase accessibility of wellness resources for staff, students, and families in collaboration with community organizations such as Alliance for Healthier Generation, VIBA Resource Center, Pure Edge, Kaiser Permanente, County of San Diego Family Services, and many others. We are committed to ensuring our students and families have access to devices and connectivity. Our team has distributed over 75,000 devices as of August 31st in our effort to ensure equitable access to learning. Mass messaging, targeted communication, and principal outreach were used to notify all families of district options to provide devices or connectivity when needed and will continue for the upcoming school year. For the 2020-2021 school year, all schools have been provided with devices for checkout to students needing a Chromebook or for online learning and the remainder of the entire school year. In addition, we have inventory for every student to be issued a device, and we've set up dedicated family support through both web-based resources and phone support to provide assistance with technology needs. Physical support centers will also be set up in multiple locations to allow families to exchange student devices when technical phone support is unavailable to resolve the issue and their school is not open to provide replacement device. Internet connectivity is supported for any San Diego Unified School District family that does not have an internet connection to support online learning. Approximately 1,900 internet connections consisting of both a partnership with a local internet service provider and hotspots have been established and funded by the district since distance learning started in the spring and will continue for this upcoming school year. I'd like to now hand it over the presentation to Dr. Sophia Roditi. Thank you.
I want to take a pause to make sure that we have more time. So I wanted to check with Superintendent Martin to see if we can get through the rest of these slides. I can try to go as quickly as possible.
Yeah, Dr. Evans, what do you think? There's
Yes, go ahead with the presentation. This is important information.
There's 10 slides left. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'll limit my talking points. In accordance with Senate Bill 98, our educators will record daily attendance in online learning A student who does not participate in online learning will be marked absent for that school day. However, educators will be able to make adjustments to the absent mark if a student completes and submits assignments within 5 days. After the 5-day window, attendance marks can no longer be adjusted. However, students can still submit work for grading purposes. Students will not be marked tardy during online learning. Keeping students actively engaged in their learning community during online learning is one of our top priorities. Benefiting from the lessons learned during the emergency school closures, we've developed a multi-tiered approach for ensuring daily participation and attendance, especially designed for students who are chronically absent or students who have not yet logged in to online learning. The first tier is teachers will use their relational capital with students and their families to determine what's standing in the way of their participation. Additionally, teachers will enlist the help of other students in the class to find their friends. In tier 2, school leaders, counselors, and other support staff at the site level will work together to locate absent students. In tier 3, central office instructional coordinators and resource teachers will be part of an all hands on deck team, which will work hard to connect with families. And finally, in tier 4, our family and community engagement team will join our outreach efforts by assisting with home visits and wellness checks. This school year, we will continue to offer a wide range of assessment measures to measure both learning and social emotional well-being. Available assessments will include state assessments such as the English Language Proficiency Assessment for California, known as the LPAC for our English learners, district assessments such as our math benchmark assessment, which was designed in collaboration with math consultant Patrick Callahan, and finally, site-based assessments such as the Developmental Reading Assessment, known as the DRA. Additionally, this year, we will be piloting 2 different universal screeners to assess social emotional well-being. Our plans for assessment and assessing student learning also took into consideration the concerns about learning loss. There has been extensive conversations across the nation and country about how school districts will mitigate learning loss. We want to ensure that our response is research-based. Research has shown that both retention and remediation are ineffective in enabling students to catch up and sometimes may even exacerbate opportunities and achievement gaps. As a result, we will not implement retention or remediation as a primary strategy to mitigate learning loss, but rather ground our approach in research-based strategies for accelerating learning focused on providing grade-level standards-based instruction for students who have fallen behind. Educators will provide specific pre-work to students who need it before the whole class encounters grade-level content. This just-in-time strategy provides students who have fallen behind the knowledge and skills they need to access grade-level material at the same time as their peers. It's also important to note that both our online and on-site schedules provide ample time for teacher planning, which will be required in designing lessons which accelerate student learning. Schedules also include additional time for small group instruction and conferring with students during office hours, both which will also help mitigate learning loss. The following slides will outline our plans for addressing the learning loss and supports for our target student groups. Let's start with the supports for English learners. We will ensure that each and every English learner across our district has access to designated English language development and integrated English language development. Additionally, educators will provide targeted small group instruction to further develop students' language acquisition. At the district level, we will support sites in 3 ways. First, by providing professional development opportunities. Secondly, central office resource teachers will provide co-teaching and coaching in the classroom. And thirdly, the Office of Language Acquisition will provide weekly office hours for leaders and educators. Next, let's talk about our supports for students with disabilities. All IEP direct services will be delivered live via video conferencing. All students with IEPs will have access to assistive technology support to provide access to online learning as needed. Additionally, students with equipment needs will have access to the equipment they need in their homes. The integrated site team, consisting of general education teachers, educational specialists, related service providers, and paraeducators, will work together to support students and accelerate learning. Professional learning opportunities for leaders and educators will focus on how to implement IEP services online and how to use the new IEP system. Additional district-level supports will include weekly office hours for educators and leaders, and site and cluster meetings focused on improving student outcomes. We will also pay close attention to the participation and performance of students identified as low income, homeless, or in foster care. Our team is relentlessly committed to highlighting the strengths of these students, increasing their connectedness to school, and providing families with the community resources they need. Our direct services to students will include conducting needs assessments, closely monitoring their enrollment, their attendance, and their school performance, connecting students and families with community resources, including social and mental health services, as Tavka described previously, food distribution location and other meal services, and transportation. The district will also support these sites by providing training such as training in the enrollment process for these students, trauma-informed care, and access to restorative justice practices, to name a few. We also know that there are students across our district who are underperforming and who are not supported by targeted funding. We will support these students with a block grant and provide direct services to students in the following ways. Teachers and counselors will work with students to develop academic, behavioral, and college and career readiness goals. Support students as they complete community-based action projects, also known as passion projects, and provide opportunities for peer mentoring in which students receive mentoring, but they're also mentors for other students. We will provide leaders and educators training in culturally responsive and sustaining practices, integrating supports for these students, positive youth development programs, among other trainings. We've also planned for a tiered approach to returning to on-site learning. This is something that Tavka also mentioned earlier. We've outlined the details for phase 1 of appointment-based learning for elementary schools only. Targeted instruction will be considered for students in the fall that meet the following criteria. One of the following criteria: performed below standard in English language arts or math strands in their spring 2020 report card, incoming TKK or new students to the district who don't have a spring 2020 report card and are not making progress toward grade level standards, students with disabilities who are not meeting their goals or have intense support needs, and finally, students who have been recommended for an initial assessment or require a triennial assessment that cannot be completed online for eligibility. The number of students who receive appointment-based on-site learning will be contingent upon available site staff and resources. Site leaders and educators will collaborate with an integrated school team to identify students and develop a plan to use existing staff and resources. Once students are identified, leaders will work with district personnel to make arrangements for transportation, meals, and health and safety protocols. Appointment-based on-site learning will not supplant, let me say that again, appointment-based on-site learning will not supplant online learning, but instead complement it. As you know, we've launched the 2020-2021 school year in online learning. Yet it's important to note that from a safety perspective, we are well prepared to implement a tiered approach to transitioning to on-site learning when it is deemed safe to do so. In preparation for on-site learning, we've obtained all of the necessary personal protective equipment to ensure that all educators, staff members, and students have access to gloves, masks, and face shields. Sites also have access to no-contact thermometers for health screening and disinfectant wipes. Additionally, schools will be equipped with desk shields for front offices to ensure the safety of our clerical staff. Additionally, we've developed protocols and plans for the following: daily disinfection of high-touch and horizontal surfaces, maximizing ventilation to promote outdoor air circulation, limiting campus access to only school staff and students, daily screening for staff and students and temperature screening for all staff upon arrival to school sites, identified a designated location on every campus for any student or staff member with COVID-like symptoms, clear protocols for social or physical distancing in classrooms and offices, clear hygiene practices that include the use of hand washing stations and hand sanitizer, safe transport to students to and from school, and clear guidelines for providing meals to students. We continue to collaborate with representatives from SDA and the UCSD panel of healthcare experts as we continue to plan our tiered approach to returning to on-site instruction. This concludes our presentation, and now we'd like to open it up for any questions that you may have.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any public comments on this item?
Yes, we have one public comment on item H3. It's from Brittany McKnight, Education Chair of the NAACP San Diego branch. The lack of notification to the public regarding the LCP and opportunities for stakeholders to provide feedback is deeply concerning. Upon reviewing the district's website and social media recently, we were unable to find any information about the LCP or such opportunities on the district's homepage, news center, or Facebook page, which is unacceptable. We implore the district to do more to notify the public about both documents and involve them in the process. In addition, the LCP and survey are only available in 2 languages. The district should make both documents available in additional languages. In regards to in-person instruction, it is imperative that all CDC, state, and county protections and indicators are satisfied. Lastly, we demand that San Diego Unified provide quality, equally accessible, public, non-charter, online programs for all students. We will follow up and provide our recommendations and additional public testimony prior to the next board meeting. Thank you.
In response to the public comment, I don't know if Superintendent Martin or Dr. Roditi or anyone else wants to comment. I think there were some already during the presentation, some comments about the participation of the public in this process. If you could just maybe reiterate that.
Yeah, we talked about the website where you can give input, and we also gave a phone number. I don't know if we can go back to that slide and reiterate the phone number for public input. Dr. Roditi could do that, or Ms. Bustani.
That number again is 619-260-5430. All stakeholders are also invited to submit their feedback via the survey at lcap@sandy.net.
And one other thing we have done in some cases is provide information in other languages besides English and Spanish. Is that a possibility?
Definitely something that we can look into.
Okay, thank you. Okay, questions and comments by board members. Vice President Barrera.
Yeah, thank you, President Evans. I just want to, this, I think, affirms the statement that President Evans read at the beginning of this meeting, regarding the update on the superintendent's evaluation. This is extraordinary work, almost all of which was unprecedented and couldn't have been planned for just a few months ago. And when you look at the comprehensive nature of the work that's been done, everything from the food distribution, the computer distribution, to how are we going to teach students, how are we going to train our entire staff to teach students online, and in the process of doing that, how do we make sure that students with some of the most critical needs in our district, our English learners, our students with disabilities, our homeless students and others, our students who have fallen behind, have that extra support. And all of it is done, which I think is typical of Superintendent Martin and her leadership team, in a way that before we just rush into things, we do our homework. We are very thoughtful about best practices. I think the approach to helping students with learning loss with a focus on acceleration rather than remediation is a clear example of this. So I want to thank Dr. Ruditi and Dr. Bustani and Superintendent Martin and Chief of Staff Stacy Monreal and our leadership team for producing. This isn't just producing a document to comply with the state requirement. This is developing an incredibly thoughtful and integrated strategy to help our students move forward in unprecedented times. So I just think it's extraordinary work. And by the way, in the actual report, it's backed up with specific line items about how we're spending money in all of these different categories and all of these different strategies. So again, thank you so much for this work, and we look forward to the second reading in 2 weeks.
Yes, Trustee Whitehurst-Payne.
Thank you for those comments, Mr. Barrera. I would like for us to go back and look at pupil engagement and outreach, the page on that with the 4 tiers, and ask staff, what are the checks and balances on that page? I mean, we can put it on paper, but how do we know that school sites are following through on this? I mean, I know we're just getting started, but I got a call today about a student who had not been, who hadn't had feedback in a week. He logged on initially and that was it. But how do we know, other than through calls like that, that we're checking on students to be sure that at the site level it's being met, at the next level, I mean, with the teachers first, and then with the administrators and the student services personnel, and then at the district level, and then finally coming to a board member. So what are we doing to have those checks and balances in place?
That's a great question, Dr. Whitehurst-Payne. One of the things that we didn't include in our presentation is those measures that we're taking at the district level to ensure that schools have a clear process for checking attendance on a daily basis. So that's first and foremost critically important because in our system, the default is a student is marked present. We want to make sure that we're not looking at a false positive. And so rule number 1 is schools need to ensure that every teacher at their site is taking attendance, right? And they have to have a process for reminding teachers to take attendance on a daily basis. Then they will use reports of any absent students to follow up with families that have not connected. And at the district, so that's the measures we're taking at the school site. At the district level, we're monitoring attendance also on a daily basis. And we're going to do that for the first month or so, and then we'll transition to weekly attendance taking right now because it's the first week of formal instruction. And for the first few weeks, we're going to do that on a daily basis. So we're also looking at attendance. And then you have your area superintendent team who will work with schools where we're seeing a lot of absences. I hope that answers your question.
It's just I just hope it's a uniform process so that we're capturing those students, the anomalies, or and maybe a handful of them. But if they keep cropping up in this group, then that means that they need something else, not just only the teachers working with them and so forth. They then need another level of intense intervention. And so I hope we have a plan in place to process that so that we're really getting at the root cause of what's going on so that we can offer support for that student early rather than waiting until it's too late. Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions or comments by board members? Yes, Trustee Patterson.
Thank you, Dr. Evans. I'll try to go quickly. I have a few questions. My first one was just regarding when I was reading it myself on the board item, looking at our enrollment numbers. I wanted to know if our projected enrollment from this past year ended up coming out to what our actual enrollment was. And so doing like your projected minus actual, and then what is that attributed to? Did we see a big decline due to COVID-19? We obviously see kindergartners are underrepresented. So I wanted a little bit more information on that number if they had it by chance. I know I'm putting the staff on the spot, so my apologies.
We actually don't have that number yet, Trustee
Okay.
Patterson. That's not something we'll be getting that in the days ahead, but we don't have that number yet.
Okay, got it. Thank you. And then my second question is on the standards-based grading aspect. I wanted to understand how is that getting down to the individual teacher? So I can say from my own experience in the classroom, there's very little changes. And if I were to compare a syllabus from, I happen to have the same Spanish teacher in Honors 7-8 Spanish last year that I do in AP Spanish language, I don't see any differences specifically. I wanted to see what substantial changes should I as a student be seeing on the school site level, and how is my teacher going to be adapting to ensure that we're recognizing the situation and moving towards standards-based grading like we've always wanted to?
That's a great question, Trustee Patterson. Actually, in our next board meeting, we'll have a presentation on standards-based grading. What I can say at this point is every educator across our system has attended a session on standards-based grading. This year, we will not be changing the secondary report card to be a standards-based report card. That's something that we're planning to do this school year. So you'll definitely see more of a shift next year. This is more of our planning year. And at our next board meeting on the 22nd, Nicole DeWitt will be presenting on standards-based grading and the changes this year in the policy.
Got it. Okay, thank you. And so I'd see more of those school site impacts in the future.
Exactly.
It's kind of district level right now. Okay, that makes sense. My other question, how exactly are counselors making contact with these at-risk students regarding mental health specifically? So we talked about how we're looking to identify these students and what process is being done to find students. Obviously, we know from mental health that students aren't always going to be upfront about it, aren't always going to say, I have a mental health issue and I need support. So how are counselors doing this, and do we have any idea of how successful it's been so far? I know it's pretty early.
I mentioned the fact that we are going to be launching or piloting 2 universal screeners for social emotional needs this year. And so we're going to make those available to sites. We actually want to pilot 2 different ones to see which ones both schools like better and which ones give us better information. And so that is definitely going to be one way where we're going to start to get information about students' social emotional needs.
Definitely, yeah. Thank you. And Once again, thank you for putting up with my questions. And just my last student take, just my comment and feedback. I'd really like to see if we had a more targeted approach to our flex time outreach. I'm concerned that teachers aren't doing a good enough job quite yet to make sure that that individual tutoring session is happening. And I'd love to see more group opportunities. I know for most of my teachers, what I've been seeing is you can reach out to me if you need me. You need to schedule appointments the day before rather than if you have questions on that specific day. And I even had one teacher that said, I'll specifically answer your questions, but I won't be going over information a second time. So it's definitely some strict guidelines that I've been seeing, and I don't think that's conducive of a positive environment for that flex time. So just my feedback. And once again, overall, great job. Thank you for your work. And I'm glad I get to participate in this.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Trustee Patterson. Other board member comments or questions? Yes, Trustee McQuarrie.
Yeah, so I want to go back to Vice President Barrera's comment about the written report, which is a very detailed 38-page document that looks backwards and forwards. And I just want to commend the staff on the excellent job they did in the PowerPoint to take this complex, detailed information and then to present it in a way that's more easily to understand. So this PowerPoint summarizes and presented the key elements that are presented in the 38 report. And it is very detailed and compact. And it takes a look at what we did, what we learned, and what do we want to do going forward. Looking backwards, I want to commend the staff for the effort they made to ensure that students were connected and online and participating, which resulted in 98% of our students participating in online learning, which is a tremendous accomplishment. Looking forward, while we are capturing the data related to our distribution of devices, we know that our students have access or hotspots, and we have ways to provide high quality curriculum and instruction. My concern is, and letters I'm getting from parents, is that the internet connection may be of low quality. So they are connected, and my question is, do we have a way of assessing the ongoing connectivity so that the excellent instruction is actually reaching the students? Does that make sense?
Dr. Mike, I think your question is related a little bit to what Dr. Whitehurst Payne's question was around if we have a student who isn't learning or isn't accessing the learning and didn't log on, why does it take us a week to figure it out? Or if the quality of the learning, maybe they're logged on and they have attendance, but you sent us an example of a student whose audio was really not great. And you were wondering, is there a way to automate and know if the streaming quality isn't good, that we're giving credit to the fact that the students logged on and learning, but they're actually not receiving the content because the audio is so garbled. And I think you're asking, is there a way for us to know the quality of the download, of the streaming, is the delivery method being done? And I'll say what I say to all of our families is that, and this is, if your child is not able to learn, whether it's because of technology or their connection, but both social, emotional, academic, or technical connection, we need to fix that and we need to get underneath that. But the solution isn't the same for each student. It depends on what the issue is. And does that get raised to the right people that can solve it? You should start with the teacher and then the principal. And what Dr. Whitehurst Payne pointed out was on slide 11, that there's tiers of support. And how do we move from tier 1 to tier 2 to tier 3 to tier 4? And do we move there quickly enough so a student isn't lost and going through a week worth of garbled instruction because the headphones were bad or the speaker and the computer was bad? That should be something that we've built a system that can correct it as quickly as possible.
Right. I'm wondering, sometimes that requires a parent to take action, or the teacher or the student. I'm wondering if the technology is there so that it can be assessed, so that there's some kind of a technical reading of the quality of the signal.
Yes, you brought that up to me today in our meeting earlier, and that's something I'm going to bring back to the
Okay.
IT team and ask them if that's something that's possible to do. I don't, as I sit here tonight, know if that's possible, but I like the idea.
All right, thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Thanks again for this presentation. And I think the key word here on this presentation is learning continuity. And I really appreciate the fact that you're trying to make it as seamless as possible between online and in-person learning, that we're not just using one system over here and another system over there, because you're setting up for a successful 2021 school year, no matter what format that we're using. And obviously our preference would be in-person learning for the whole year, but in the meantime, we want the best possible online learning that we can have. Again, I think people need to know that we are, and as even indicated on your presentation, we are constantly and continually preparing for the return to in-person learning, all of the PPE, the ventilation, testing and tracing, and all those things that will make it safe this month. And we're taking a phased approach, as I said earlier. And I think one of the things people have to realize, and I was talking to one of the principals about this, is that the first week was really training on online learning for parents, for students and teachers. And as we sit here today is really as you said, the first day of formal instruction. I mean, it's going to take, 2 or 3 weeks for teachers to assess who are the students who are missing out, that whether they're homeless students or special needs students or students who are not performing for some of the reasons, so that they can find out how to augment their online learning with some in-person learning. And it's certainly my opinion that in the future, when we're able to phase in more students, that we would start with the younger students, because we're always balancing risk. And with our younger students, we know that there are less risk for the virus, and there are also have greater difficulty with online learning, particularly in the kindergarten and first grade level. And I think the other thing we have to realize too, and I think this was pointed out by Trustee Whitehurst-Payne, is there's a lot we are going to learn from this distance learning situation that will really help us a lot when we turn to in-person learning, in terms of really customizing the learning programs and meeting the individual needs of students, and other things like better communication with teachers. If in the past they might have stopped by the school or something, taught the teacher to realize that they can email back and forth, or they can visit and tune into the classes online and see more of what's going on. We need to be able to continue replicating a lot of these improvements when we're actually back for in-person learning. But again, I think the key thing to me is that this is a continuity of learning plan for both modes, and really appreciate the work that all of you have been doing so diligently on this.
Dr.
Okay.
Evans, do you mind if I just comment on one specific thing that you?
No. And I was also, one thing I was going to say was I'm going to apologize for not having articulately intelligent questions like Trustee Patterson. But anyway, go ahead, Trustee Patterson.
On that, on the email thing that you said, I think that is a really good point. And I do want to bring up, as I talked about when I was reading student comments, the principal of San Diego High did tell me the thing that she really enjoyed about the portfolios was that it talked about self-advocacy, and it encouraged students to reach out to their teachers to begin that chain of communication. In speaking with a teacher from Montgomery Middle School, or a counselor from Montgomery, she told me that last year she had about 7 students that sent her the entire email in the subject line. And I email all the time, but to the majority of students that don't email all the time, it's actually it would be shocking to realize that it's not something that's common information, and that it's something that does need to be explicitly taught if we want our students to learn that to create that understanding. And I think the portfolio is a good first step, but also really putting those accountability measures on there and getting students to understand everything from creating their Gmail all the way to actually emailing the teacher and establishing that line of communication is going to be so critical now, and as we move into a increasingly more technological world.
That's a really good point. And I also kind of wonder, there may be some students who would not be inclined to go up in person to ask a question of the teacher, but would be more comfortable getting started by establishing that communication online. And since that's what's necessary in the current environment, they might be able to continue that. Just like those of us who send text messages to each other during a meeting, not during a board meeting, of course, because it's a public meeting.
Never. Yeah.
Other meetings. Okay. Okay, so that was the first read of that item, and we will have the second reading at the next board meeting. So we thank you very much to the staff for your time and participation and a really good presentation. We will now move to the superintendent's consent agenda. And first of all, let's look at what items do we have for public comment on the consent agenda. And then I'll take a motion after that.
Yes, we have public comment on I-1, I-10, I-28, and I-29.
Okay.
I move approval.
Okay, Trustee White-Spain moves for approval. Is there a second? Second by Trustee Barrera. Okay, so we have that. And so as we read, there's a little echo here. As we read through these items, maybe we can identify what is the topic that they are speaking about, or the title of the item, so that people can follow along at home a little more closely. So first of all, we have item I1, which is, I1 is the approval of minutes. Is that correct?
No, I-1 is field trips.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm in the wrong section. Okay, go ahead, field trips. Go ahead, comment.
Yes,
Public.
regarding field trips, we have a comment from Citizen. Teachers and coaches hold secret field trips that are not being approved by San Diego Unified School Board. Employees solicit outside vendors and are compensated financially, but state they are not employees of the district, but employed by the vendors, yet use district facilities for free, have marketing materials mailed to schools, and use district email to solicit other employees to work for the vendors and use work hours to market the vendor services. The school board members and superintendent have received many complaints about these illegal activities, but continue to let these practices, which financially benefit employees, to continue. All field trips occurring on school district time and facilities should be agendized, reviewed, and discussed by the school board.
Okay, and item I10 is interdivisional curriculum committee recommendations regarding
Yes, regarding I-10, this comment is also from Citizen. Course of study programs and courses should be presented in one report instead of the patchwork system used by San Diego Unified. It is impossible for the public to understand San Diego Unified's educational plan when pieces are presented at several public meetings throughout the year. This has led to burdensome impact on the master schedules, which is detrimental to students. Any courses which cannot enroll a minimum of 25 students should be dropped, as this costs far too much taxpayer money. The school board fails to review if the courses draw enough interested students to make the cost is not a waste of taxpayer educational dollars.
Okay, and item I-28 is ratification of agreement with Dennis Wolver Kelly to provide legal advice and representation pertaining to special education legal matters, and it's $250,000. And just to point out, that amount is an up to amount. It's not necessarily that full amount.
Yes, for I-28, we have a comment from Marianne Grosner. I would like to ask the board to not approve the contract for Dennis Wolver Kelly. Why is San Diego Unified increasing their special education legal spending with this law firm, especially since you have in-house legal counsel already? It was noted that no funds have been used for the current fiscal year with Dennis Wolver Kelly, but yet the contract amount increased by $15,000 to $250,000. With teachers getting furloughed and employees losing jobs, why is there a need to increase legal spending? Does the district value their vendors more than their own employees? Dennis Wolver Kelly is paid with our taxpayer dollars. I wanted the board to be aware that Dennis Wolver Kelly is also receiving a Paycheck Protection Program loan for up to $1 million, which means they are receiving even more taxpayer dollars. This is a significant amount of taxpayer dollars going to a law firm that sues children with disabilities. There needs to be more oversight and accountability to special education matters. Please look into how Janice Wolliver Kelly are using taxpayer dollars and change the focus toward funding teachers and classified staff and not lawyers. Thank you.
Okay, and then we go to item I-29, which is Second Amendment to an agreement with Fagan, Friedman, and Full Frost. Legal advice representation for special education. As a prior one, this one is up to $75,000.
So we have two comments on item I-29. The first is from Rita Luth. I wanted to share how our family has been victimized by the law firm of Fagan, Friedman, and Full Frost, which your district contracts with. Amid the coronavirus outbreak, Fagan, Friedman, and Full Frost is suing children with disabilities. They have filed a myriad of legal actions to deny services to children with disabilities during the pandemic. It is a kick them while they are down tactic. The law firm has resulted to dirty tactics such as hiring private investigators to conduct what amounts to government-funded surveillance. I recently filed a complaint with the state bar about the law firm. They filed a legal action in federal court over $8.40. There is a motion to the court pending. But rather than wait for the court to rule on the motion, the law firm filed an untimely and frivolous action in court seeking 1.21% interest for 1 month's worth of interest on the $12,160. The amount sought by the law firm is $8.40. The law firm is abusing the system by filing a premature action when they know full well the issue is currently being appealed. I believe the law firm's actions are designed to intimidate me from pursuing legal remedies to obtain special education services for my daughter. The issues I raise apply to the San Diego area because the law firm will use the same tactics on San Diego students. Please request that your staff provide a breakdown of how much has been spent on special education litigation. Please look into how the time. And the second comment on this item is from Marianne Grosner. I would like to ask the board to not approve the Second Amendment for the Fagan, Friedman, and Full Frost agreement. San Diego Unified has in-house legal counsel, so it is unclear as to why you are increasing your legal spending for special education matters. The board packet notes that there are no expenses for the current year with the law firm, but yet the contract amount increased by $75,000 to $225,000. Why? Shouldn't funding go towards students to return to classrooms? $75,000 can purchase a lot of PPE, upgrade HVAC systems, tents for outdoor learning spaces, water bottle filling stations to replace water fountains, etc. The law firm is paid with our taxpayer dollars. They are receiving a Paycheck Protection Program loan for up to $5 million in taxpayer dollars. This is a significant amount of taxpayer dollars going to a law firm that sues children with disabilities. There needs to be more oversight and accountability to special education matters. Please look into how the law firm are using our taxpayer dollars and change the focus towards funding teachers and classified staff and not lawyers. Thank you.
Okay, that concludes public comment on the superintendent's consent agenda. We have a motion and a second to approve all the items that are presented here. If there are no further board member comments or questions, one from Trustee Whitehurst Payne.
Concerning the ICC issue about 25 students or more, that's how we got into the difficulty last year with Lincoln and the calculus class, the AP calculus, requiring 25 folks or more. I think we've got to be careful and look at that issue in a larger context and not just as an isolated item.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
you. Okay, at this point, we will vote on the superintendent's consent agenda. Trustee Patterson?
Aye.
Herrera?
Aye.
Beiser?
Aye.
McQuarrie?
Aye.
Whitehurst Payne?
Aye.
And Evans, aye, including Trustee Whitehurst Payne, including Trustee Patterson, and the 5 board members have all approved for a 5-0 vote. We will now move to public participation, and I just want to remind again that for both agenda and non-agenda public testimony, We limit it to 150 words so that we can get in more people. It's the same word limit for letters to the editor at the San Diego Union Tribune, for example. And you certainly can submit longer comments, which the board members will be able to read. These are all distributed to the board members. However, when someone submits a longer comment, we have no way of editing other than just reading the first part of the item going to 150 words, and most of them have fallen within that guideline anyway. So I'm going to start with one that is in the middle, that's a longer, a few pages, just to read the beginning part, and then we'll go and read through all of the others. This is a Jerebec parent's request to return to on-campus instruction, and it reads as follows. I'm writing on behalf of several taxpayers and parents in the San Diego Unified School District, and mostly parents of students of Jerebec Elementary School. With the best interests of our children in mind, and pursuant to Board Policy H7900, we request that the school district commit to providing an option for on-site instruction for elementary schools, including Jerebec, as soon as is practicably possible in view of recently updated state and county guidelines. Not only do the signers of this letter believe wholeheartedly that delaying a return to campus option will be detrimental to our children's welfare and success, but as discussed further below, our request is consistent with the overwhelming desire of the taxpaying parents in this district and mandated by the district's own policies. Furthermore, while we understand the serious and real risk that COVID-19 imposes on our teachers, staff, children and families, health experts, and even the district itself, have developed workable safety protocols that may be reasonably implemented in our schools to mitigate such risks, at least to reasonably appropriate levels. To the extent the board disagrees or deems it necessary, we also respectfully request the opportunity to be heard at the next board meeting. And then he continues to provide several paragraphs of background, parents' overwhelming demand for on-campus learning, district policy mandates an on-campus option, another paragraph on risk mitigation, and the conclusion asking for the opening of elementary schools. It is signed by several parents, and including, if I will try to pronounce these names, Jesse and Chan Salen, Lisa Ladarulo, Nikolai Suslav, Angelika Gina Bulatovic, Brooke Sweeney, Liesl Riley, Marianne Jacobson, and Jenny Corneliuson. Okay, now Ms. Stoltz can begin with the first one, and then we'll go around between the three of us reading the many comments on non-agenda items.
Yes, and I just wanted to remind the public that the trustees received a full packet of all of the public comment in its entirety. So when we summarize some parts of it, it's the public or the trustees have actually received the full packet. This comment is from Dolores Lopez. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to know, why is the district giving the special needs parents this so-called telehealth and teleservices consent form? Why not be transparent and call it what it really is, a waiver? By parents signing this form, it means parents are signing their children's rights away. Districts are required to implement IEPs as written, as we no longer have stay-at-home orders. By parents signing this document, they may be agreeing that the district can conduct all related services for their child and also specialized academic instruction through telehealth or teletherapy, which means online and not in person. It may also allow San Diego Unified to conduct any assessment that they want virtually, and furthermore, they may not be required to have a signed assessment plan because they may have already given permission to conduct any assessment they want. It also states that they can generate goals or plans. It does not say the parent will be included in this process. Parents basically, without knowing, are waiving away their child's rights, and we need better clarification of this form from the special education department. And they have included a sample of the form they are referring to.
Okay, I will read the next public comment by Yukiko Hakamada. I'm aware that Sandy Unified is providing forms labeled telehealth and teleservices consent form to special education families. These forms seem strikingly similar to a waiver. Secretary DeVos did not approve waivers for IDEA. It is concerning because it seems like the parents would need to sign the children's rights away to receive services. It appears it may allow Sandy Unified to conduct any assessment that they want virtually, and as well as suggest they may not be required to have a signed assessment plan since the parents are already giving them permission to conduct any assessment. It also states that they can generate goals or plans and does not say the parent will be included in this process. Parents should be able to meaningfully participate in the IEP process. Please provide more clarification on this consent form. Thank you.
Yeah, and President Evans, I know it's normally our practice not to comment on non-agenda public testimony, but in regards to the last two comments, if we could just briefly ask Chief Counsel Andra Green to comment on this telehealth form.
Yes, thank you, Vice President Barrera. I'm happy to do that. This is not a waiver form at all. It is simply a consent form to allow for one-to-one instructions to be provided telephonically or telehealth without and notifying the parents that there will be a one-to-one without another adult in the room. Parents are in no way restricted from participating in the IEP process, nor do they waive any rights.
Thank you for asking that question, Trustee Barrera, because we do see the form and appreciate that clarification.
And thank you, Ms. Green. Okay, the next comment comes from Mindy Sue Swanson. On August 2nd, 2020, KPBS Weekend ran a story about the option of outdoor learning. With our temperate climate, already built outdoor classrooms with shade at schools with active garden programs, including Montgomery Middle, Burney Elementary, reopening schools is a unique possibility. These sites not only have infrastructure near ready to pilot these outdoor classrooms, but also have seasoned educators who are experienced and can be deployed to lead this effort. This may create important options for students who are not being well served by the online options. What steps can San Diego Unified take to begin exploring these options for both academic and therapeutic social emotional learning? While student and staff safety is important for the whole community, creating healthy options for underserved students, even as a pilot, could help increase our success.
The next comment is from Maris Branchow. The County of San Diego's public health officer announced on August 25th, 2020, that all San Diego County schools are approved to reopen as of Tuesday, September 1st. High schoolers are able to follow social distancing and mask requirements. Please do not delay in reopening San Diego Unified High Schools. Keeping teens at home is causing them to fall behind in their academics, spend way too much time on their electronic devices, and is harming them. It is especially frustrating for math education to attempt to teach and learn complicated math online. On behalf of parents and students, please reopen high schools in San Diego Unified. Additionally, any new vaccine requirements under consideration are ridiculous, especially since flu shots are rarely effective against all strains and do nothing to stop COVID-19. Leave medical decisions up to parents, and please fulfill your role of providing quality public education by allowing schools to reopen with social distancing. Sincerely, a parent of a San Diego Unified High School student.
Okay, the next comment is from Laura Cecily Pope. I want to know, regardless of permission to do so, why you will not open our non-public school. My son attends Urban Skills Center, TIEE. He is 19 and has Down syndrome and is nonverbal. He can't do remote school. And I would just refer that to the special education department to look into that.
Okay, this comment is from Jamie S. Howell. San Diego Unified needs to open schools. These kids are being punished for the selfishness of adults. They are suffering for it academically, psychologically, and emotionally. Give parents the choice. Let us sign a waiver. Allow us to have our paper packets versus Zoom meetings if that's what families opt for. One size does not fit all. This is not working, especially for dual working families forced to choose between providing for the family and sacrificing their child's education. Virtual learning is not the equal opportunity education that they would receive in school. It's not the same. San Diego Unified is failing our kids.
The next comment is from a person who wishes to remain anonymous. I have 3 children, 2 of which are school age. One is pre-K and the other is a 7th grader. My 7th grader has done fairly well with online schooling, but has struggled mentally and emotionally from feeling isolated and not getting to do much of anything outside the house, including see any of his friends. We are a military family and we don't have any family nearby. My son's only form of socialization was at school, and because we moved here recently, he has not had the opportunity to meet anyone because school has been out. It's hard, and I do worry about his mental state every single day. My preschooler, on the other hand, is associated with the free preschool program. Online learning is 100% ineffective with him. He has no interest in it. He has a speech delay, so desperately needs preschool for guided education as well as socialization. I worry he won't get the help he needs and will end up even further behind where he is already at. These school closures aren't just an issue now, it's something that can affect our kids for years to come because they are trying to play catch up. I am also a full-time student and my husband is military and deploys very soon. We also have a 1-year-old. I just fear my children's education will suffer because of not getting the amount of attention they need from us right now at home. I think that is the biggest issue. Parents want to be able to make this virtual school setup work, but with work schedules, college, and other kids' deployments and a lack of tech knowledge, it is proving to feel like an uphill battle.
Okay, the last one was from Anonymous, correct? Okay, this is from Stacy Armstrong. Please consider opening your schools for all children immediately. Because you've decided to stay closed, the children who can afford private school are the only students able to have a full academic year, and therefore you are choosing to create an unequitable education, which is exactly what you claim you're striving for. We live in a city with the best climate in the country, so saying that HVAC systems must be updated is an unfortunate excuse when creative efforts could be made to create outdoor classrooms. Rather than depending on additional state or federal funding, why haven't you considered asking businesses and families to pitch in? In these unprecedented times, we're all in this together. And if you're willing to be creative and share the burden for the sake of our children, we can make all this work in a more appropriate and sustainable way for everyone. Parent of 4.
Okay, this is from Eric Armstrong, parent of 4. Please consider opening your schools for all children immediately. It's disappointing that a large district is not willing to factor in the mental health and development of the children in our city at times when COVID-19 spread could be managed in a reasonably safe manner that protects teachers if some creative thought would simply be applied. Without access to in-person activities, the children are suffering and we are losing vital time of emotional and academic development. Virtual learning is not sustainable for children, teachers, or parents, and it is frustrating that we have paid taxes for our schools. We have voted for our school board members, and yet we have no power to request them to be opened in a safe way and have seen no proposal to do so. Without flexibility and creativity, you will be losing enrollment because families will rise above these selfish decisions.
Next comment is from Edward Ewing. Like thousands of other parents, I was duped into believing your hollow words of parents as partners. I gave feedback in Zoom meetings and filled out surveys. 50,000 of us responded. 79% want some form of in-person education, and 59% want nothing to do the oxymoron of distance learning. If the parents were a governmental body, their vote would be a veto-proof mandate. But you ignore this and the well-documented emotional, physical, and educational damage done to children by closing schools. New York City, the former epicenter of the virus, is now returning their children to the classroom and utilizing the concept of outdoor education. If this largest school district in the nation with an average of 25 inches of snow a year can do it, why can't you? Stop making excuses. Meet the real needs of the children you were elected to serve.
This comment is from E. Hall. I am emailing to have my opinion heard at the school board meeting on September 8th. Please open schools to students of parents that are essential employees. I work in healthcare, and my husband is a first responder, and our jobs are not able to be done from home. We are really struggling to manage the needs of our work and our children's school schedules. We cannot find affordable childcare that accommodates learning needs. We need our kids to return to school campuses in person as soon as possible. Thank you for your consideration.
This is from Morgan Lloyd. My son attends Holmes Elementary. I have confirmed with the faculty that no physical preparations have been made for COVID-19 once school opens for in-person learning. It has been 5 months since school closed. Wouldn't it be wise to start building plexiglass dividers, arranging desks, etc.? When school was going to be in-person learning, I was under the impression that there were funds available for this. Why are there no longer funds? I'm sure there are plenty of people in the community that can help with the building of plexiglass dividers. Money can be raised, etc. While I appreciate the district working so hard to facilitate distance learning, more efforts need to be made to get back to campus. If equity is important to San Diego Unified, why are most private schools in person while public schools remain closed, further dividing opportunities for students based on income level?
The next comment is from Jennifer Fox. I have a 4th grader and a 2nd grader at Miramar Ranch Elementary. I'm hoping that there will be a discussion at the meeting about opening up schools K through 5 on a hybrid 2-day-a-week option for half of each class at a time. The current metric of less than 7 community outbreaks in a week surely means that San Diego Unified will not reopen at all during the 2020-2021 school year. It is unfair that private schools and smaller public schools will find a way to reopen in some capacity. Please reconsider this metric as the kids are suffering because online learning is in no way comparable to the experience kids can have in the classroom, even at a couple of days per week. Thank you for your consideration.
This comment is from Heather Arbisu. I'm writing today in hopes that you will reconsider your decision to keep schools closed. Sitting here listening to my 1st grader on his Zoom lesson, the teacher is doing her best to keep the class engaged, but it's not the same. As a 1st grade teacher myself, I know the importance of in-person instruction, and it saddens me to know that this is how my child will be spending the first part of his 1st grade year. I truly feel students need to be in the classroom. With how the year ended, students are craving routine, familiarity, structure, and friendships. If other cities around the country are able to adapt and attend in person, San Diego schools should have the resources to be able to do the same. I urge you to figure out a way to make this happen for the kids.
This comment is from Anna Lutz. Hello, I have 2 children in your district. I want my kids to go back to in-person schooling. My children are depressed because they have been locked in their home all year. They are only 7 and 8 years old. It is safe to go back, and you are forcing political BS down my family's throat. Parks, sports, schools, all shut down even when we have the green light to go back. Please open up. We hate your online learning. It only depresses my children more. They hate it. My 1st grader sits on the floor and cries while my 2nd grader walks off and cries. The teachers can't figure out Zoom. They expect me to help all day when I'm working. Stop the BS and get back to business or we will leave. I'll get paid to homeschool or find another school district. I will give you a month to open or we are gone.
The next comment is from Lindsay Anderson. I am a parent of 4 San Diego Unified students at Bay Park Elementary. I have twins in the transitional kindergarten and a 2nd and 3rd grader. The 2nd and 3rd grader are mostly self-sufficient with their academic work. However, they are completely unexcited and depressed to be at home away from their friends and community. We feel that if the psychological needs of the children were being considered at all, it would greatly outweigh the very small risk they have of dealing with the complications of COVID-19. And we know the risk is very small at this point. We are not afraid for them to return to school. We should have the choice at the very least. If other schools are able to open, it is simply wrong to keep San Diego Unified closed because it's a large district with more politics and red tape. If children are the concern, then act like it. Our younger two do not have the attention span nor desire for Zoom-related teaching. It is ridiculous. The teachers are incredible and the curriculum is great. The problem is the environment. For our family, we hope our kids will be able to get back to school in a normal, mentally healthy environment as soon as possible. Thank you for listening.
This comment comes from Crystal Fernandez. Hello, my name is Crystal Fernandez and my daughter is enrolled in the Santa Unified School District Middle School. I feel so grateful with what the school district came up with and keeping the students safe. My husband is active duty military and I work full time. My daughter was not accepted in prime time this year and I fear the school schedule for returning to school. I hope that they continue to have the option of distant learning. If they will have shorter school hours when they reopen schools. Thank you for all you do to keep our children safe.
This comment is from Lauren Hicks. Thank you for offering the opportunity for me to speak on behalf of my family regarding distance learning. I heard I need to make this short, so I'll dive right in. It's hard for me, mostly so far because my son is in kindergarten and his schedule is insane and I can't work at home and help him through all of it. The class should just Zoom meet in the morning for a circle time and sharing, 30 to 40 minutes max or even less than that, and then do activities on their own time so that it fits in with the parent's schedule. I'm drowning here. It is expected for my son to be available at scheduled times from 9 to 1 p.m. He's 5. He isn't going to stay in one place long. My children go to Cadman Elementary in Bay Park. Please let me know if you have any questions for me.
The next comment is from Ginger Duval. Where is the focus on special education? I am highly unsatisfied that special education seems to be an afterthought in all of this. I understand these are unprecedented, trying times, and I praise every single teacher that is embracing and braving the online distance learning. They are rock stars and superheroes, but we must do better for all of our special education students.
And from Myron Funkwinkle, your refusal to recognize in-person socialization as the primary need of children is shocking. They haven't been damaged by the disease, but from your response to it. If this were a matter of ignorance, you might be forgiven, but it is not. You know that there is a gap in the district between poor families and those with means. Your actions will only exacerbate these divisions and push many families, especially those of color, further from the American dream. You also know that due to the pandemic, domestic violence is on the rise while reporting is down. For many children, school is more than a place of instruction. It is a safe haven. By closing schools, you are forcing many children to endure the unthinkable, mental, physical, and sexual abuse. Without schools to escape to, some may not survive. Your unwillingness to reopen schools is an unforgivable conduit to abuse.
Okay, this comment is from Gabrielle Strickler. I want to first congratulate Miss Leslie Barnes of Bay Park Elementary and Mr. John Galeas of Marston Middle School. They and their teachers are handling things in the best way humanly possible during a very difficult time. Communication is strong and comes often, and they continue to remain positive and upbeat when I'm sure they have just as much anxiety as families and students do. I'm beyond grateful for my schools and the teachers that engage and care for my children. I'm grateful for the leadership at my schools who continue to create a quality environment even during distance learning, which is less than ideal. For their sake, I will bring up the continued connectivity issues with Zoom. My family has had to purchase gaming headphones with mics and a secondary router to make sure the kids can connect with their teachers without interruption. I'm grateful we can afford to do this and wonder what technical solutions you will be offering families that can't. The tech website for San Diego Unified offers help, but does not seem to offer help with Zoom issues. I don't think it's a Chromebook issue, but rather Zoom and internet provider issues. I know the district is making sure people have internet, but what about the strength of that internet in each home? Distance learning will not be sustainable if the connections aren't happening. Lots of us parents are working from home as well, and these connection issues are stressful for us and the kids. I know in a house full of 5 people, 4 of us have had meltdowns this week. I do not want this to be taken as a complaint, but more as providing information I hope will be helpful.
Can we have the staff follow up on that specific one regarding the usage of headphones specifically?
Thank you for pointing that out. We'll have staff look into that.
Thank you.
Next comment is from Katie B. I feel fortunate to have my child attending a school within San Diego Unified that has been communicative and done a good job with trying to keep my child engaged. I do, however, feel there has been zero accommodation for working parents. Zero direction from the district to schools on how to be flexible for working parents. Zoom sessions should be able to be recorded so kids can make them up and not miss that time. Kids who have working parents are being punished by your system that doesn't accommodate their parents' schedule. Clear guidelines on what attendance requirements need to be sent to all parents. My child was given a 15-minute assessment via Zoom by a teacher she barely knows and was expected to perform over a platform that most are not comfortable with. I don't think opening up to schools is a good idea, but these Zoom requirements, especially for little kids that require help from their teachers, is not functional. I was told there would be flexibility, but the model doesn't provide for any.
And just as a comment about connectivity, I think if they can look into, is there a technical way to record Zoom meetings, or to some way have them recorded so that they can access it at other hours. This comment is from Michelle Fairbanks. My kindergartner attends Longfellow Spanish immersion. He is failing miserably and is not being immersed in Spanish. Please allow him to go to school full-time as soon as possible. Thank you.
This comment is from Bree Price. The online program of 6.5 hours is not feasible for the children. Requiring them to remain seated and engaged for so long is an undue burden and stress on them. It is also not possible when you have a family of 3 children, one of which is special needs, autistic, and both parents are considered essential workers, active duty military. The children are not able to hold that attention and participate in the online schooling for longer than an hour at a time, and to expect them to do more schooling after the Zoom meetings is not realistic. To expect students to do more intensive schoolwork at home than they do at school is ridiculous and unfair to the children and the parents. It is beyond time to open the schools. Thank you for your time, the Price family.
This comment is from Kristen Powell. I have a daughter attending Marston Middle School. I do not agree with distance learning. I am going to transfer her to the Rock Academy next month if San Diego Unified does not open for on-site learning. She already has 4 friends that have transferred to other on-site schools.
Okay, this is from John Prince. We need to get our kids back in the classroom for their mental and social well-being. Fully virtual learning is not sustainable, practical, or healthy. With only 2% total case rate in the county over the last 6 months with no measures, then full shutdown, then reopening, then shut down again. We need to be practical and respond appropriately to the risk and severity, make sure our kids are sent home and stay home when sick, COVID or any time of illness, and shift focus to separating and isolating the vulnerable, not the opposite.
Okay, and our last comment comes from Chris Clark. I want to inquire as to why San Diego Unified is attempting to input their political agenda into the education of my 6th grader. It's bad enough that our entire collegiate system has become an overpriced bastion of single-mindedness, where free speech is only acceptable when you agree with the teacher. Educators are supposed to help their students think for themselves, not tell them how to think. The fact that a 6th grader is able to know the political views of their teachers or education system means you're failing as educators and are simply overpaid, unelected politicians. Grade school children have no business being force-fed the political agenda of Cindy Martin and San Diego Unified. The attached images show an assignment that is nothing but political race-baiting nonsense. It has no place in the education system of grade schoolers. Further, why are our children being assigned work to determine their religious beliefs? If it's not a violation of their constitutional rights, it's as close as you can get and completely unnecessary. Not to mention, it serves zero educational value. Please feel free to explain yourselves and why you felt so comfortable trying to force-feed an agenda and violate the rights of children. And Mr. Clark then attaches a screenshot of the Welcome Week portfolio.
And yes, there is one final comment. This is from Regina L. Wardani, sorry. Based on the San Diego Unified demographics, the ethnic studies program must also include Pacific Islander, Middle Eastern, and Muslim populations in separate learning objectives / lessons and not as an afterthought stuck into another group. All statistically significant groups must be covered and represented equally in terms of amount of content and time devoted. The above populations, based on San Diego Unified statistics, represent at least 22% or higher of San Diego Unified. For example, naturalized or refugee students from Iraq, Iran, Egypt, Afghanistan, Yemen, Somalia, Ethiopia, Libya, Syria, etc., are currently considered white or possibly multiracial, and therefore there is no plan to present a curriculum representative of the student group, which is significant. Furthermore, Muslim students can be represented along with this group, which is vast. Muslim students are among the most highly bullied students within San Diego Unified. Teaching about the Middle Eastern and Muslim cultures is paramount to ending racism and bullying within this group. This must be done. While Pacific Islanders represent 4%, there is no plan to present curriculum on this group. Rather, they will have one lesson mentioned under Asians, the same plan for the ME/Muslim group. This is not adequate. Compare this to Judaism, less than 2%, wherein lengthy and significant curriculum is devoted within history and social studies. It is important that all ethnic groups are equally represented in the ethnic studies program and given their due time and curriculum, and most importantly, that the representation is positive and accurate. Thank you.
Okay, that concludes public comment on non-agenda items. We appreciate the input from all the people who have taken the time to write to the board. And if an issue needs further attention, we are referring those to the superintendent for review or investigation. And at this point, we are going to adjourn our meeting. And the next meeting will be on Tuesday, September 22nd, 2020. Thank you very much.